was also very businesslike that one watched and fascinated. One watched it fascinated. It was pork making by machinery, pork making by applied mathematics, and yet somehow the most matter-of-fact person could not help thinking of the hogs. They were so innocent, they came so very trustingly, and they were so very human in their protests, so perfectly within their rights. They had done nothing to deserve it, and it was adding insult to injury as the thing was done here, swinging them up in the cold-blooded, impersonal way, without a pretense at apology, without the homage of a tear. Now and then, a visitor wept, to be sure, but this slaughtering machine ran on. Visitors or no visitors, it was like some horrible crime committed in a dungeon, all unseen, all unheeded, buried out of sight and out of memory. One could not stand and watch very long without becoming philosophical, without beginning to deal in symbols and similes, and to hear the hog squeal of the universe. Was it permitted to believe that there was nowhere upon the earth or above the earth a heaven for hogs, where they were requited for all this suffering? Each one of these hogs was a separate creature. Some were white hogs, some were black, some were brown, some were spotted, some were old, some were young, some were long and lean, some were monstrous. And each of them had an individuality of his own, a will of his own, a hope and a heart's desire. Each was full of self-confidence, of self-importance, and a sense of dignity, and trusting and strong in faith, he had gone about his business. And while a black shadow hung over him, and a horrified fate waited in his path. Now suddenly, it had swooped upon him, and had seized him by the leg. Relentless, remorseless, it was. All his protests, his screams, were nothing to it. It did its cruel will on him, as if his wishes, his feelings had simply not existed at all. It cut up his throat and watched him gasp out of life. And now was one to believe that there was nowhere a god of hogs, to whom this hog personality was precious, to whom these hog squeals and agonies had a meaning. Who would take this hog into his arms and comfort him, rewarding him with his work well done, and show him the meaning of his sacrifice? Perhaps some glimpse of all of this was in the thoughts of our humble-minded Jurgis, as he turned to go on with the rest of the party and muttered, "Dave, but I'm glad I'm not a hog."